I would like to welcome the audience to the January 18th, 2022 Parish Planning and Zoning Board meeting. Would you all please stand while Mr. LaSalle Williams says the invocation and pledge of allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Christie, would you please call the roll?
Chair Kirk Smith.
Here.
Vice Chair Julia Dickerson.
Here.
Miss Latricia Cobb.
Here.
And Mr. Keith DeBrock will be absent. Miss Sharon Galicia.
Here.
Miss Janelle Hyatt.
Here.
Mr. Art Little.
Here.
Mr. Jake Porche.
Here.
Mr. Carl Vincent.
Here.
Mr. LaSalle Williams.
Here.
And Miss Deanne Winey.
Here.
Thank you, Christie. This is an 11-member board. It will take a majority of those members present to grant or deny any request heard tonight. The chair will refrain from voting unless the vote might affect the outcome. The meeting will be conducted with me reading the request from the agenda. The planning staff will give a presentation and report their recommendations. If the applicant would like to add to the staff's presentation, or if someone from the audience has comments, please come to the microphone and state your name, address, and the nature of your request. All persons wishing to speak other than the applicants need to fill out a blue Request to Appear form located in the back of this room. This form must be given to a staff member prior to the reading of the agenda item. As required by the board's bylaws, in all cases, the proponents will be limited to 10 minutes. Opponents will be granted 10 minutes as well, with each speaker allowed no more than 3 minutes. I recommend that a spokesperson be selected if there's a large group wanting to speak on the same agenda item. If 4 more speaker request forms are submitted, the time allowed for individual speakers will be limited based upon the number of forms submitted. The chair has the right to limit speakers who present redundant information or personal attacks. In unique situations, the chair may extend or the board may vote to extend the time allotted for speakers. After discussion, the board will vote on each request. I will announce the decision of the board after the vote. The rezoning cases will go before the police jury for final action. This meeting is being filmed by the Calcasieu Parish Government Channel and can be viewed on Wednesday and Thursday following the meeting. For additional run dates, check the website at www.calcasiewparish.gov. Channel 5 in Lake Charles, Sulphur, Moss Bluff, Westlake, Vinton, DeQuincy, and Gillis. Channel 99 in Carlos and Grand Lake. Please either turn off or silence all electronic devices. Take appropriate action to approve minutes of the December 14th, 2021 Planning and Zoning meeting. I will entertain a motion to approve minutes. Motion by Ms. Dickerson, second by Ms. Hyatt. All those in favor state aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item 6A, take appropriate action on SUB-1221-0164, a request by CMH Homes Incorporated for preliminary subdivision approval to allow a residential subdivision, 170 lots in LeCount Estates subdivision in the 7800 block of Highway 3256 in Ward 8. I will entertain a motion for approval with conditions.
Approved.
Motion by Ms. Hyatt,
Second.
second by Ms. Winey. Ms. Tunn.
This property is located between Clough and Iway and encompasses approximately 112 acres. Last year, the board approved a rezoning on this property from single-family residential to mixed residential to allow mixed residential development for the future 170-lot subdivision. At this time, the applicant is requesting preliminary plat approval to move forward with LeConte Estates subdivision development. Because the proposed subdivision development is consistent with the character of the area, the staff recommends the request be granted with the following conditions: that the development is subject to an application and/or compliance with the LPDES stormwater discharge permit, which may be required through the Department of Environmental Quality and the Calcasieu Parish Division of Planning and Development, and that the preliminary plat and the runoff management plan must be approved by the Division of Engineering prior to submittal of final plans.
Thank you, Ms. Tunn. Does the applicant have anything to add to the staff's presentation?
Good afternoon. Robin Bissoni, 1010 Lakeland Drive of Lake Charles, 70605. We appreciate the board's service to the parish, as always. Tonight I'm representing CMH Homes Incorporated, also known as Clayton Homes. You have all of the information in front of you. I'm available for any questions. We would like you to know that lots will be sold to individuals. This is a subdivision and lots will be sold. We will comply with all of the requirement of the permits as we go through the course of the development. But if you have any questions, I'm right here.
Any questions for Ms. Bissoni by the board? Thank you, ma'am. Any questions or comments regarding this matter? There being none, all those in favor state aye. Aye. Any opposed? There being none, motion carries. Item 6B, take appropriate action on SUB-1221-0165, a request by Sasol North America, Inc. for preliminary subdivision approval to allow an industrial subdivision, 18 lots, and Sasol re-subdivision at 2205 Houston River Road in Ward 4. I will entertain a motion for approval with conditions. Motion by Coach Williams, second by Ms. Hyatt. Ms. Tunn.
This property is in Mossville and zoned heavy industrial. Sasol Chemical has recently entered in a joint venture with LyondellBasell, creating Louisiana Polyethylene Joint Venture, which has created 13 new tracts of land. At this time, the applicant is requesting preliminary plat approval to move forward with the Sasol re-subdivision. Because the proposed subdivision development is consistent with the character of the area, the staff recommends the request be granted with the following conditions: that the development is subject to an application for and/or compliance with the LPDES stormwater discharge permit, which may be required through the Department of Environmental Quality and the Calcasieu Parish Division of Planning and Development, and that the preliminary plat and runoff management plan must be approved by the Division of Engineering prior to submittal of final plans.
Thank you, Ms. Tunn. Does the applicant have anything to add to the staff's presentation? Okay. Any questions or comments by the board? There being none, all those in favor state aye. Aye. Any opposed? There being none, motion carries. Rezoning, item 7A, take appropriate action on RZ-1121-0215, a request by Harold Heath Edux to rezone from mixed residential R2 to multifamily residential R-M to allow multifamily residential development, 54-unit duplex development in the 5600 block of Leger Road in Ward 3. I will entertain a motion for approval with conditions. Motion by Ms. Cobb, second by Ms. Hyatt. Ms. Tunn.
This property is in South Lake Charles area. The applicant is requesting to rezone from mixed residential to multifamily residential to allow a 54-unit duplex development. The development will have 27 duplexes, which will have 2 and 3 bedroom and 2 bath units. Because the proposed zoning is consistent with the land use pattern and character of the area, the staff recommends the request be granted with the following conditions: that the development adhere to the site plan on file with the Division of Planning and Development, provided that the director or designee may authorize adjustments to the site plan in light of technical or engineering considerations discovered during development, that all exterior lighting must be oriented inward toward the development and the light source cannot be visible to the adjacent properties, that screening must be provided adjacent to residential uses in accordance with Section 26-550 of the Parish Code of Ordinances prior to any final electrical approval, that all parking and driveways must be hard surface, asphalt or concrete, that the development adhere to stormwater best management practices, and that a runoff management plan will be required unless appropriate waiver is granted by the Division of Engineering.
Thank you, Ms. Tunn. Does the applicant have anything to add to the staff's presentation? Okay, we have blue cards on this agenda item. 5, I'm sorry. Is the applicant present? Would you like to add to the presentation? Okay. Okay, we already read it. First blue card we have is Lynetta Boyette.
Mr. Chairman, as the first speaker comes up, I think we now have 5 or maybe even 6 speakers. So let's, we'll have each speaker with 2 minutes. Is that
Okay.
acceptable?
I'll keep it short and sweet. In my personal experience, with,
Name and address for the record,
I'm
ma'am.
sorry, I didn't hear that. Lynetta Boyette, 321 Syria Road, zip code 70607. Okay. In my personal experience, a higher influx of people just straight up means a higher probability of crime. I'm sorry, that's just facts. And that's why I'm saying I'm against it. The end. Thank you.
Okay, any questions for Ms. Boyette? Okay, being none. Gerald Chavis?
How you doing? My name is Gerald Chavis. My address is 5974 Leger Road, and I'm against this rezoning because I need to ask a question. What does this rezoning mean? Okay, we got animals out there. We rezone this here, people coming in there, then we got to move our animals out. I've been there all my life, was raised back up in there. Okay, so this is matter of fact, I got property right next to the property that wants to rezone. Okay, I don't mind the guy building what he want to build, but when you talk about rezoning, that means other people can come in there and then move me out with my animals. I got horses, dogs, chickens. It's my whole family, the Chavis family back up in there. We've been living there all our life. Matter of fact, we integrated Kaufman High School. That's how long we've been there. So, but this development coming in, the roads are narrow. They got a pipeline running through there on that piece of property. How are you gonna put something up there worth other than something like a project? And we don't need that out there. If you're gonna build some nice condos, townhouses, or homes, you know, to develop, to increase the property value instead of keeping it down. You know, so that's what my opinion about this here. And what I'm most worried about is that we're gonna have to look for places for our animals to stay because the people that come here don't have no idea or get upset about our animals being there, and we've been there for years. Thank you.
Mr. Crane, would you like to address his matter of his animals and rezoning, what it means to him, or?
This has nothing.
Right, that's-
This will not affect him having to move any of your animals or anything like
This is only on the
that.
property.
This is just
That
specifically
is
for this.
before us today,
Yeah,
nothing
but
else.
rezoning, then, you know, later on, to something else come up, and then, you know, sooner or later, you know, because this happened up on the north side of Lake Charles over there. The people had animals back up in there, and they started rezoning, and they had to move them animals out, especially under that, those power lines that was back there. They had to move all their animals out, and they had animals back there for years.
But I don't think that had to do with rezoning in that particular instance.
I think that was a city ordinance.
Right. Okay. Hardy Parkerson?
Thank you very much for the opportunity to come and be heard on this issue. Going back to about 19 in the early 60s, when I was in college at McNeese. In the summer, we would work, my father worked for a pipeline company, and they would hire the sons of the workers for the summer. It'd be a way of back before the days of student loans, and they'd help you get through college. And I worked for a service pipeline company that ran a pipeline called the Bayou Pipeline all the way from Baytown, Texas, down Highway 90. That thing was built for some reason or other along the shoulder of old Highway 90 to Baton Rouge, where it hooked onto a pipeline called the Plantation Pipeline that took the gasoline on up north somewhere. But it was pure refined gasoline. And our job was painting the post along the right-of-way so that when the airplane would fly the right-of-way, they could know what was going on. Anyway, all of a sudden that pipeline broke down near Baton Rouge, a little town. I used to know the name of it very well, but on old 90, going into Baton Rouge. And there was a bayou right, and the pipe ran right under the driveway of an old filling station that was on the highway. And they had to throw bales of hay across the bayou to keep the gasoline from running down the bayou. The gasoline would flow to the top of the water, and the hay bales would hold the gasoline back. We, as workers, young workers, had to get down in the hole with pickaxes and dig into right in front of the gasoline pumps to get down to the gas line where it had broken. And as we were, and there was water in the hole that we dug, and the gasoline floated to the top of the water. And as we came down with our pickaxes, it had sparks. There were sparks. And later on, I asked somebody, some scientist or knowledgeable scientist, why that didn't catch fire and burn us up. And he said there just wasn't enough oxygen there, that it just wouldn't for that gasoline to catch on fire. Anyway, over the years, I've still learned a lot more about pipelines. They built way back. They built the so-called Colonial, was a 36-inch pipeline, purifying gasoline, and it took more. It would take as much gasoline in 1 hour as a ship could take in several days, going up to Staten Island, New York, or somewhere up in there, delivering gasoline from the Baytown area. The Colonial starts over there around Baytown somewhere, and it goes all the way up to Staten Island, New York, somewhere. Anyway,
Mr. Parkinson, we've got quite a few blue cards on this agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Anyway, this sign that's out on Leger Road says they're going to build this nice apartment complex. That the sign is right almost next door to that old Colonial pipeline right-of-way. Anyway, I'm not saying I'm against building it, but somebody with some knowledge, scientific knowledge and engineering knowledge and pipeline knowledge, gasoline and all that. Later on, over the years, I called Colonial and asked them about that pipeline. I knew how dangerous the old pipeline was. And they told me they'd built another one, 40-inch, alongside it. And anyway, it's dangerous. It's very dangerous, and the police jury shouldn't grant that until they have examined it themselves and made sure that, because I've always, as I go by Kaufman Elementary, I always wonder, man, I can't believe they built that school that's so close to that pipeline.
Thank you, Mr. Parkinson. Cynthia Carrier.
Good afternoon. I am Cynthia Carey. I live at 5618 Leger Road. I do represent not only myself, I live next door to that property. I am representing a lot of Lake Street, who is adjacent to that property, butts up to that property, Lake Street, North Lake Court, South Lake Court, Windsor Court. Those people have had a lot of problems there. I wrote mine because I have a lot to say. As residents and members of this community, we are seeking inclusiveness in the town's development. That is why we are here now. We the people are for development. We're just not for destroying or placing additional heavy social and economic burdens on an already distressed area that's already combating these issues. Putting 54 housing units for long-term residential housing does not promote a stronger community. with increased traffic, noise, and other new external factors on this land. It will greatly affect our community. These are temporary people. It will increase the density without consideration of infrastructure needs. The owner of the property and the intended buyers who plans to develop it are the ones who reaps the profits by buying land so cheaply, such as this one, and overbuild them and change the neighborhoods forever, devaluing our homes, the homeowners' investments, and then moving on to the next neighborhood. Rezoning will place pressure on an already vulnerable area in terms of social, economic, troubled, low-income area, which from a sociology standpoint will give birth to the additional problems that already exist. It's horrible back there, but we live in it. We live there. We can tell you everything. The residents will have to bear the burden, especially when you look at research for this kind of project in such an existing neighborhood, low income, as ours, that is already filled with the issues. The Calcasieu Parish Sheriff's Department deems this as the most troublesome and dangerous area due to crime and violence.
Thank you, Ms. Carrier. Thank you. I want to remind everybody, we still have more blue cards to go, that on this particular topic, anyone coming to the podium has 2 minutes to speak.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, we really shouldn't do that from the audience. We've got 5 speakers. Let's stick to
We
the
have
2
3
minutes.
more to go. Thank you, ma'am. Mike Byrne.
Mike Byrne. I live at 715 North Lake Court Drive, which is off of Lake Street. It abuts up to the property to be developed from the east side. Recently, we've had a large number of people just seen walking up and down our road, crossing through the woods from that area with their cell phones in their hand, looking for internet connections, that kind of thing. We don't need any more of that. I know I don't have long to speak, so I'm going to be brief. I appreciate what Ms. Carrier said. She addressed a lot of the things that I really wanted to say. And I appreciate wherever the developers are that they, and the police jury as well, that y'all put these extra development issues, requirements on the property, the screening and all that. But I have a question about what screening really is. Is that a fence? What kind of fence is it? The retention pond, is that a retention pond or is it a septic pond? It's a retention pond. Okay. Is this rental or is it going to be privately owned property? The 54 units. What is it again?
Rental.
Rental? Is it going to include Section 8? I mean, those are all questions that we have and everybody's interested in. And finally, I don't know if anybody on the zoning board has been back in that trailer park on the south end of that subdivision, that area. It looks the same as it did before Hurricane Laura blew through there. There's trailers that have not been occupied in years. The septic pond, if that's what it is, or if it's a retention pond, I don't know, is covered with green slime. And I'm telling you, it is a disaster.
Well,
So,
our purpose is for this rezone. As far as the other one, I don't think we have any dealings with that on our agenda this evening.
well, I'm on the record. That's where I wanted to be. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Doug LaFleur?
My name is Doug LaFleur. I live at 124 Cobb Road, and I'm against this rezoning for numerous reasons. One, there's already inadequate infrastructure. Right now it rains, we flood. You have narrow roads. There's no public transportation out there. You would have an increased flow of traffic going to that project. And another thing I want to know, has there been a wetlands delineation done? And I disagree with this animal thing because I have animals, and we had a home on that road that a renter comes in that's not familiar with our lifestyle calls animal control every day. So those people will be calling animal control, and I have animals. So I disagree with this won't change things for animals, those of us with animals.
Sir, I think if someone's calling regarding that, that has no bearing on us.
It does have a bearing, because if you rezone, you're gonna have people that are not familiar with our lifestyle and our animals that are gonna call. That gives 50-something more people to call. And like I said, it floods now when it rains. Our electrical grid is poor. Are they gonna redo the electrical grids, all the drainage? And how is this, has there been a wetlands delineation done yet, a wetland study? How's that gonna impact my property? Okay. I know for a fact, I know that a fact that part of that is wetlands by definition. Right. Like I said, and the purpose of wetlands is to prevent our property from flooding. And due to the fact that the parish does not maintain the road, the canals there, we flood already if there's a rain. We don't need additional pressure on our infrastructure.
That's it.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Lefleur. Okay. Gloria Moran? Am I saying that correctly? I can't make out the last name.
Hi, I'm Gloria Moran. I live in 5403 Lakeport Drive. I'm a neighbor of Mr. Mike. And we're very concerned in that area because we think that this project is kind of like, it's not gonna bring any good in our area, in their areas either. There are people that live calmly there, they have their animal. I think it's gonna be a big mistake to build all that 50-something rental properties there. It's gonna really increase the crime. It's really gonna bother us and the price of our property in that area. We are really quiet neighborhood, and it's gonna be like right there. It's not gonna be possible. It's not gonna affect us, our area in the, for our quiet neighborhood. It's not possible. So we really disagree with it. And I'm representing my neighborhood, the majority are really old people. They like the area, the way it is. We don't need that over there. And I agree too with the people that live in that side, because I kind of know some people there, like, it's decent people. They have their animal, they have their quiet area there. 50-something rentals there, it's not gonna be any good for us. That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Does the applicant have anything to add to this presentation? Or to address the issues that were brought up? No, sir. It had to be provided to us prior to reading of the agenda item. Well, I think, how many did we go over? 7 of them?
Mr. Chairman, this is your meeting. If you want to take a motion from somebody else, if somebody wants to hear this, you can put it to a board or you can allow it.
Is there any opposition to hearing this gentleman speak? There being none, you got 2 minutes.
Brian Duhon, 301 Fontenot Lane. That's Fontenot Lane in Leger. And I'm leery about this project. I live right by Kaufman Elementary. We've got 2 bad trailer parks there, temporary people. That road is a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit, and every day I can count 15, 20, 30 cars that will run down that road at 60 miles an hour. Now, we got children walking on them streets. If that thing was like a permanent housing, people living there and taking care of the place and not temporary, I wouldn't be opposed to it. But temporary people, it seems like, they abuse that. And I've called the sheriff department quite a few times. If somebody from the sheriff department would go out there and check it, they said they would, but they never have. But that's my concern. That's school. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Porcher,
applicant here?
is the applicant present?
Yes, yes.
Do you wish to address some of these issues?
How you doing? My name is Larry Tutson. I live in Lake Charles, Louisiana. My address is 5861 Jubilee Lane. Okay, it would not consist of any low-income housing. I don't see where it would hurt. I mean, I love animals too. We're not trying to push anyone's animals out. If anything, the only thing I can see that it would probably increase the value in the area. Right now, the area already it's a mixed community. You have businesses in the area, trailer parks in the area. I think, you know, Lake Charles, we done been through a lot, you know, already. There's still people looking for homes. There's still people trying to come back home. I'm still displaced. I'm living in Katy, Texas right now. But what we planning to do is, I think it's going to give the area a facelift. I know it may be a lot of things going on in the area. Right now they have people coming out of the woods with cell phones and stuff like that. By doing something with the property and not leaving it vacant, it'll get rid of some of that stuff. The property don't really have any neighboring, like, it's not really any, it's not any homes buttoned up to the property line. It's not sharing, it's not meeting up with anyone else's property. So, maybe on the back side. I don't.
The speaker
Well-
only has the right to speak. No comments, please.
Where the development would take place, the structures will come up at a safe distance away from the pipeline. So it will be well away from the pipeline, and there's a lot of ground between the property line and the neighboring, you know, home is. So I really don't have a whole lot to say, but like I said, the community is already a mixed community, and I just don't see where it would hurt. I'm not bringing in temporary workers or anything like that. This is for our community. So that's all I have.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant?
I don't.
Coach there, I don't know if Mr. Crane can address it.
Yes, sir.
In reference to the pipelines, wasn't these pipelines in that area in character before the subdivision even came in?
Yes, sir, there's an existing pipeline that,
Even subdivision even built?
oh, yes, sir.
That's my question. Thank you.
Any other questions? Ms. Weiner?
Yes, sir. Can you tell me, what's the average rent that you're expecting from your units? Because I'm trying to get an idea of your target audience, shall we say, for your apartments. Because I also want you to address for me, you stated that it will increase the value of the area, and you stated that it will give the area a facelift. So I'd like to know how will it do that? So I have two questions for you.
Okay, so we're gonna be coming up with a modern elevation, something to give a new look to the area. I'm not sure where the range as far as rent would be. I don't have that information at the moment, but it's not gonna be Section 8. We plan on putting a gate to where you have to use a code to get in.
So you have so it's 54 units, is it?
Yes, ma'am.
And you don't have an idea of the rent that you're going to assess?
No, ma'am, not at the moment.
Okay.
I normally don't do the speaking. I don't have all of the information. My wife and another business partner, well, my wife is at home with COVID, so she wasn't here to speak, so I'm just here to do the best that I can. You know, I don't do this, but without a doubt, we are business owners, and I just feel like without a doubt, it would bring the area value, and hopefully encourage other people to bring stuff to the area also. You know, other business owners.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? There being none. Any questions for the staff before we? Mr. Porsche?
And just a couple of comments. With the R2 zoning existing as is, what would be the density? Trailer homes are approved under R2. What would be the density currently as of right that someone could go in and put trailer homes on that acreage? Just a ballpark for my.
Well, it's currently not subdivided, so it's actually just one lot.
Correct.
So
Okay.
basically,
You have
maybe
to
two.
subdivide it under
Yeah,
R2.
They would have to
But
subdivide.
wouldn't have to rezone it.
Wouldn't have to rezone it.
Right.
But they would have to say, in order to get multiple units on that property,
Right.
they would have to re-subdivide the land.
Yeah, I mean, just, I think so many times we villainize someone trying to get up here and develop a piece of property. I can see his point about it improving the area, your stick-built development. To the north, you've got existing mobile home parks that we already know are a problem, and to the south. In 2018, I was reading through that we denied another mobile home park because of the existing problems with the other parks. But I think rezoning to stick-built structures with what looks like nice duplexes that aren't government-assisted is a more stringent zoning as far as what could be allowed than R2. So I wanted to ask the staff that question and make those comments. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Porsche.
Pardon?
He's not the applicant, he's the buyer.
Correct.
Any other questions for the staff?
Just for some clarification, in regards to the drainage and whatnot, I know we do, in our ordinance, the engineering department will come in and do drainage studies, and they have to do some retention of any waters that's leaving that property, which will help that area not to impede any more water onto them. Is that correct?
That's correct. They'll have to submit a runoff management plan that the engineering department will review, and they'll have to meet all the standards required under that ordinance.
And also on the other question someone had mentioned was in regards to the fencing. That's in our ordinance that the fencing is required up to heights and types to maintain the distance in between.
We do have I think we had a condition in there.
It is.
Yep. Yes.
Ms. Whitey?
Within our package, so we don't have a picture of what this would look like?
I designed the exterior
Okay.
of the buildings yet.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't think they submitted that.
Any other questions? There being none, Ms. Christie, roll call vote.
Ms. Galicia?
No.
Ms. Hyatt? Mr. Little?
No.
Mr. Porsche?
Yes.
Mr. Vincent?
No.
Mr. Williams?
Yeah.
Ms. Whitey?
no.
Ms. Dickerson?
Yes.
And Ms. Cobb? No? We have 3 for and 6 against.
The motion fails. That's fine, thank you. We're moving on, item 7B, take appropriate action on RZ-1221-0216, a request by Dakota Southern Industries LLC to rezone from light commercial to central business commercial, C3, to allow commercial development, mini warehouses in the 400 block of Parish Road in Ward 1. I will entertain a motion for approval with conditions.
So move.
Motion by Mr. Little, a second by Ms. Hyatt. Ms. Tunn.
This property is in Moss Bluff and encompasses a little over a half acre of light commercial zone land. The applicant is requesting to rezone the property to general commercial to develop a 72-unit mini warehouse storage facility. Because the proposed development is consistent with the character of the area, the staff recommends the request be granted with the following conditions. That the development adhere to the site plan on file with the Division of Planning and Development, provided that the director or designee may authorize adjustments to the site plan in light of technical or engineering considerations discovered during development. That all exterior lighting must be oriented inward toward the development and the light source cannot be visible to the adjacent properties. That screening must be provided in accordance with Section 26-50 of the Parish Code of Ordinances prior to final electrical approval. That all parking and driveways must be hard surface, asphalt or concrete. That the development adhere to stormwater best management practices, and that a runoff management plan will be required unless appropriate waiver is granted by the Division of Engineering.
Thank you, Ms. Tunn. Does the applicant have anything to add to the staff's presentation? Okay. We have one blue card on this item. Josh Zarang.
Okay, so my name's Josh Zarang. I live on 139 Sylvia Lane, and I'm here representing the residents of Sylvia Lane, who are all here. We've got 134, Miss Sarah Fuselier is here. We've got 157, which one? Sandra Chambers, Miss Sandra Chambers, and 156, Erica Jensen. So we have really concerns. Look, we already know that is C1. We already know it's a commercial C1. Rezoning to C3, we're really concerned about our property values and our resale values, for our investments of our homes. We live on a dead-end street. That property is right on the corner of Parish and Sylvia. We pass that property every single day. We look at it every single day. My house, my front yard faces that property. And that property the property line is about 3 foot from Miss Sarah Fuselier's wall on her house. So really thinking about rezoning to C3, we're really kind of curious. If, say you do rezone it and he decides not to put mini storages there, what else can be put there? We're worried about our noise level. Like I said, our property values. It's a quiet street. We talk to all of our neighbors. We don't always get along as neighbors, but on this, we get along. So we're really concerned about that. We're really concerned about, you said the screening fence, is that going to be something where we're not going to have to look at mini storages every day? What's the traffic going to be like? Is there going to be access from Sylvia Lane into that mini storage? It's,
Based on the access, Mr. Crane, correct me if I'm wrong, it would be off of Parish Road.
It's off of Parish.
Off of Parish.
I'm sorry, off of Parish Road, the access.
So there wouldn't be any access off of Sylvia?
No. And in terms of screening that means fencing, like a 6-foot wooden fence or something.
Not chain link, nothing you can see through?
It has to be where it's visibly not seen.
What about that property line being so close to Miss Sarah's house? I mean, the property line is
Well-
like 3 foot from her wall of her house.
Well, the property lines is a common property line.
I mean, it's right there.
The property line is a common property line, so it might be that her structure is that close to the property. But these structures here, I don't know where she lives, if she's on the west.
She lives right there where that star is,
I
that
see,
20
yeah.
foot,
She's on
that's
the
right,
west side.
that's, in fact, where that star
So
is,
the
that's right where her
property-
wall is.
Yeah, so the actual units are not gonna start until at least 30 or 20 feet from the property line.
Right. And what does something like this do to noise levels of the community? We live on dead-end street, quiet dead-end street. and also values of our homes, you know? Who's gonna wanna, if one of us does decide to sell our homes, who's gonna wanna buy a home and look at a storage unit? That's our concerns. Thank you, appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman, as the first speaker was at the podium and after the agenda item was called, there another blue card was submitted.
Okay.
Again, it's our rules are that it has to be turned in before the item's read, but that is at your discretion.
Anyone have any objection to hearing the blue card that is in Mr.
It is
Gadd's
Sarah.
possession? If not,
It is Sarah Fuselier.
Sarah Fuselier.
Never been to a meeting like this before, so I was not aware to turn it in. My name is Sarah Fusler. I do reside at 134 Sylvia Lane. Like my neighbor stated, I'm literally at that little store right there that comes close to my property. When I purchased this home, I'm about to be 30 next month, but I bought it at 27 years old as a single mother for me and my child. I grew up on a dead-end street where noise was low. We knew everyone, just like my neighbor had stated. I brought it not only for myself, but also for my daughter when she grows older, for somewhere for her to be. So I take a lot of strength in, I want a safe place for her. I know with building a storage unit that we have right behind our house already, I know for a fact that the sheriff's office has been there quite a few times for burglaries. So it makes me concerned as far as the crime rate that's going to be there if they're to add more storage units. I know there's quite a few already, I believe around 7 or so.
7 within 7-mile radius already.
So I don't see the purpose of adding another one right now. So that's my concerns as far as being right there next to the property, again, for the safety for me and my child.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Ms. Fuselier? There being none, does the applicant have anything to add to this presentation?
Evening, my name is Eric Schnack, I'm with Dakota Southern. Going back to where everything
What's your
said,
address,
you know.
sir?
What?
What is your address?
2717 East Robinwood Drive. My wife and I, when we put this together, you know, we were very cognizant of the neighborhood and being that it is a neighborhood. To the north of us, you know, there's the sand barn, and directly north of that, there is a mini storage unit. And to the east, there's a trailer park as well. So that area is kind of getting rezoned commercially as a whole, but we want to be respectful to the neighborhood. And when we designed this, we did so going back to, you know, we don't want to put traffic off Sylvia Lane. Don't want people going in and out of that neighborhood. We want to do it off Parish Road. In addition, we want to make a nice looking area. So when these storage units get installed, or if they do, it will be a nice looking thing with proper security and proper access to all that. And even when we were designing it, I mean, we put the footages, I think, safely further back than they needed to be respectful of our neighbors around us. But understand all the concerns. This is something that my family and I are doing as a whole. I had my boys out there this summer working with me, clearing out trees. So understand all the concerns, but we will make this a respectful thing for the Moss Bluff area.
Any questions for the applicant? Thank you, sir.
I do.
Oh,
I do.
hold on. Ms. Winey?
Can you tell me if you're aware, how, I think one of the opposition said it, but how many storage facilities are already in existence in the area where you're?
There are several off Sam Houston Drive, and there's actually one directly north of us. But part of the reason we kind of brought this up is that there's been an issue going back to the hurricanes with people not having access to units when it all came about. I mean, there's kind of text boxes kind of screwing about. And when we thought about this, we thought about, hey, this is something the community needs, and hoping we don't ever have a hurricane again, knock on wood, but it is something that we came up with.
And this is a dead-end street? Is it a dead-end residential street?
Sylvia Road is a dead-end road. This is the first street off Parish Road, the first lot off Parish.
He's on the north and south. He's on Parish. On the south side of him is Sylvia, where these folks live.
Thank you.
I have a question. And it's gonna
Ms.
be a brick
Galicia?
facade like this?
Yes, ma'am.
And you think with 7 and 7 miles, you can cash flow it?
Yes, ma'am. This is going to be climate controlled. The units to the north of us right now they're non-climate controlled, so hoping that provide another nuance compared to the others.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Any questions or comments by the board? Mr. Porcher?
Just to note, immediately to the north is light industrial zoning. Across the street is manufactured home park. So it's kind of a mixed bag of zoning right there, so it definitely would not be spot zoning.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Ms. Christie, roll call vote?
Ms. Galicia?
Yes.
Ms. Hyatt? Mr. Little?
Yes.
Mr. Porsche?
Yes.
Mr. Vincent?
Yes.
Mr. Williams? Ms. Winey?
No.
Ms. Dickerson?
Yes.
Ms. Cobb? No. 7 for and 2 against.
Motion fails, passes. Item 7D, take appropriate action on RZ dash 1221-0217, a request by Parkway Village Investors LLC to rezone from mixed residential R2 to multifamily residential RM to allow multiple family residential development, 48-unit apartment complex at 1355 Sam Houston Jones Parkway in Ward 1. I will entertain a motion for approval with conditions. Motion by Ms. Dickerson, second by Ms. Hyatt. Ms. Tunn.
This property is in Moss Bluff off of Sam Houston Jones Parkway on Salings Road. The applicant is requesting to rezone from mixed residential to multifamily residential to allow a 48-unit apartment complex. The units will consist of 12 one-bedroom, 1-bath, 12 two-bedroom, 2-bath, and 24 three-bedroom, 2-bath units. The proposed development will provide its tenants with a community facility, a dog park, courtyard area, and other amenities. Because the proposed zoning is consistent with the land use pattern and the character of the area, the staff recommends the request be granted with the following conditions. For the development, adhere to the site plan on file with the Division of Planning and Development, provided that the director or designee may authorize adjustments to the site plan in light of technical or engineering considerations discovered during development, that all exterior lighting must be oriented inward toward the development and the light source cannot be visible to the adjacent properties, that screening must be provided in accordance with Section 26-50 of the Parish Code of Ordinances prior to final electrical approval, that all parking and driveways must be hard surface, asphalt, or concrete, that a runoff management plan will be required unless appropriate waiver is granted by the Division of Engineering, and that a traffic impact analysis may be required unless appropriate waiver is granted by the Division of Engineering.
Thank you, Ms. Tunn. Does the applicant have anything to add to the staff's presentation?
Good evening. I'm Blake Soto with the Investors Group, 728 Cleveland Street, Lake Charles, Louisiana, 70601, representing Parkway Village Investors. Thank you all for the opportunity to speak tonight. You have the information in your packets, and we're certainly going to adhere to the stipulations set out that Ms. Tunn read earlier. I'd like to add and provide a little color on the developer and the type of development. HF3 Group has developed 28 projects between Mississippi, Tennessee, Louisiana, and Connecticut of over 1,000 units. They provide or build Class A multifamily facilities. This is a project that is financed in part by the Affordable Housing Tax Credit Program. It is just a financing mechanism that the developer can use in order to get this project built. In the absence of such a program, the numbers would never work. These units will be a mix. 40% of the units are at market rate, 60% are at a reduced rate, but all of the tenants that will be living here will be hardworking people making somewhere in the neighborhood of $30,000 to $57,000 a year. This is a private, for-profit development, and it is not a government-owned project. I want to point out some similar financed projects that are very nice in the community. The Erdis apartment complex in downtown Lake Charles, Belle Savon and Carlos, and forgive me, I do not know the name, but the apartment complex on Elliott Road, down Elliott Road. All of these use some sort of financing program like this in order to get built. The tenants will have to apply through the property management program in order to live there. And of course, there will be no discrimination per housing law, but all applicants go through the property management program and are subjected to background checks, credit score checks, and certainly that they be working. These tax credits run for a period of 15 years. They plan to own it for all of that period or longer. There will be a maintenance staff member on site for full-time. There will be a property manager on site full-time. This is not a Section 8 development, and that's all I have to say.
I got a question.
Yes, sir?
I'm just thinking if you brought it up, you said 60% is reduced rent?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great point. So the rents that this developer anticipates charging are between $850 and $900 a month, which is, a reduced rate, and that's what they're going to offer to so market rate being $1,200 to $1,600 a month. So the
Which
reduced,
is what, 40% of the
correct,
folks
correct,
occupy?
yes, sir. Yes, sir. And so 60% of that would be in the $850 to $900 range.
Is there differentials in the units themselves that dictate that, or is everything the same?
So based on the unit and also based on income.
Okay.
Again, and it is somewhat of a moving target considering that it has to do with demand on space. I'll tell you that right now, earlier this afternoon, a quick Zillow and apartments.com search showed that there are, on Zillow, no more than 8 rental units available. The cheapest one being, there are 3 between $900 and $950 a month, 1 at $1,000 a month, and 4 between $1,400 and $1,600 a month. Apartments.com, there are no more than 10 listings, including a studio that is leasing for $1,695 a month on Barnett or Bennett, and a double occupancy mobile home that is leasing for $750 a month. There is a 4-bedroom house at $2,950 a month. And so this developer coming in anticipates providing housing for, your service workers, your people who are working at the fire department, the water department, the bank, people who are working, making $30,000 to $57,000 a month, and they can't stretch. They can't stretch a $1,500 a month rent rate. And so by taking advantage of the programs that the government puts out there, they're able to provide this very nice quality development with significant buffer zone, landscaping out the wazoo, a dog park, and some housing units on site that is, I think, well below the maximum density, and still make it work. In the development business, if we were to do this in the absence of that program, it would not happen.
Unless you put up more of your own money, right?
If it grows on trees.
So without the government money, you can't do it.
Again, it's assistance for the developer. As a renter, let's say, what's the experience of the renter? It's not like they're going to the housing department downtown and getting your ticket stub. They're going to the property management office on site, filling out an application, going through the background checks, the employment checks, and a rigorous, a rigorous vetting process to make sure that, that they're a suitable candidate for this development. This owner, this developer is in the business of making money. And
But this isn't government-backed housing, correct?
that's a misnomer. So,
I just want to
yes,
ask,
sir.
because you have deviations in.
That's
what you
right. No,
charge.
no, sir. It is not a Section 8 program. It is not a public housing facility. This is a privately owned development. And the only reason I bring any of it up is to combat what I've seen on Facebook saying that it would be Section 8 or whatever. This is, instead of going to a bank, and by the way, they probably are going to a bank, they're using the Affordable Housing Tax Credit Program, which allows them to turn around and sell tax credits, thereby bringing in income to make the deal work. They are capped through this program, and this is why rents are where they, why 60% of the rents fall where they do, is they are capped at making a certain amount per rental unit and per renter.
Ms. Wiley?
Yes, sir. I need you to help me understand this, the tax credit program.
Mhm.
So is this for a period of years that the developer, wait, let me finish my question first.
Okay.
Is this for a period of years that the developer will receive this? Because my point that I'm trying to make down the road is, okay, so once this is exhausted, then what will you do in terms of, because I heard the reduced rate for tenants, so I'm just wondering down the road, like 8 years, 10 years down the road, what is this going to be like? Because we know what it's going to be like when it's first developed, but what is it going to be like 10 years from now? 7 years from now?
I would anticipate that, like with other multifamily and residential developments, they continue to appreciate. I would anticipate that rents are going to fluctuate depending on the amount of units that are available in the community. I mean, like I said, Zillow and Apartments.com, though they overlap, there's no more than 18 available listings. That's nothing for an area the size of Moss Bluff. And so, you're asking me about rates, right?
Well, I'm trying to learn about the tax credit.
Okay.
Like, so does that help him for a period of
15 years? isn't
By
it?
no
You said,
means am
Blake?
I an expert, but the tax credit has to do with, the developer sells the tax credits to a business who made too much money and has a tax problem.
Okay.
Okay, so they sell it to some user company that has too much of a tax burden, and
Okay.
so they can reduce that rate. It's 15 years that the tax credits run, but afterwards it reverts to whatever market rate is at the time,
Okay.
a full 100% of the units.
Okay. That's what you told me what I needed, which was the 15 years. That's what I was trying to understand.
After the 15 years, if market rate is $1,300 for a two-bedroom unit, and then all the two-bedroom units will be $1,300. If it's $1,500 for a three-bedroom unit, all the three bedrooms will be $1,500. I mean, it's going to be set by the market.
That explains it for me. Thank you.
Very good.
Just wanted to make sure I'm clear. So it's a private development. I'm familiar with property management and apartments. So someone comes to the private developer, no gainful employment, a history of burning leases, terrible tenant history. Will they get to rent?
No.
Okay. So the government won't send a subsidized check to the tenant every month, who then in turn, so not Section 8. Okay. And
If the tenant is not gainfully employed, does not pass the background check or the credit check, or has any sort of negative history,
they say no.
they're out.
Yeah. Okay.
This
So
is
just-
for hard-working people who just need a little help on a lower rent rate.
And at 15 years, it reverts back to 100%. So
Market
it's a
rate.
financing
It is
mechanism.
a finance mechanism that is available to developers within a qualified area. So
Right.
they look at the census every couple of years, and they come out with these maps, and there's one of Calcasieu Parish, and there's about 3 or 4 different areas in the parish that the federal government has said, hey, we need a slightly reduced rental rate for this area, and a slightly reduced rental rate for this area. And they're in all of the
In the first, what did you say, downtown? That's that.
Erdis.
That's the old Sears site?
Yeah, the
It's really nice.
across the street from, Old Sears.
And I think the one on Elliott is Legacy.
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 Erdis does not finance like that, though. I know
What's that?
Roger. He does use some government, but it's not credits like that.
It was a HUD finance deal.
Right.
It's actually even more.
But he doesn't reduce rates.
But his is market rate, right?
His is market rate.
His is even further in the list of opportunities that the
But
housing and
it's-
urban development provides.
Okay. Sharon, you had a question?
Yeah, so you had said about the locations, but why right here on Salings? Because last month it was on 378, now at Salings. Why not an area of Moss Bluff that's already residential? I mean, that's already that type of residential with all the rentals and the,
Probably doesn't exist, I don't know. We always anticipated for the rear of the property to be developed out this way. You know, our company did the Parkway Village development where Rouse's and CVS and Christus, Center for Orthopedics, the sushi restaurant, the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you know, we brought a development to the area that we feel sets the bar very high for other developers coming in to have a similar product. And we feel these guys are qualified and will do the same. That they will bring in a development that sets the bar high for the community, and it'll be something that Moss Bluff residents can be proud of.
Any other questions?
Just comment, Sharon, there, right there to the east, there's down Jones Road is a lot of multifamily zoning.
I know.
And two of the complaints that we get for just about every issue we hear is traffic and drainage, which really have nothing to do with us. But to me, I mean, traffic, I'm sure you guys will mitigate the pretty detention pond there, but I mean, traffic, what better spot than in a commercial area with high traffic right there on 378? But
In terms
but
of,
I didn't know if you had seen the multifamily.
I know.
right there.
I am from Moss Bluff and my
Good.
phone has
Good.
blown up.
Sure. Oh, it's unbelievable.
The other,
Yeah.
I guess, issue in looking at the map that is proposed, that there wasn't anything that led to, one of the questions I had was sewer. It didn't show it on there. And the other question would be your retention/detention pond.
Sure.
Because obviously Rouse's has one.
So Rouse's detention is actually shared with the Parkway Village development. I'm splitting hairs, but they actually own their tract of land.
Okay.
And so that is a community system that we have a subcontractor that manages it for us. So this development, this housing will have its own sewer treatment plant. It will have its own detention system, and they will go through all the rigorous studies that the parish requires in order to get their permits. The other thing I didn't mention is that there will be significant security systems in place, and that's it. But they've met with the appropriate, whether it's Water District 1 or the appropriate municipal groups to confirm that there is adequate power, water, and then their sewer plant on site meets the criteria that, or their sewer plant design rather meets the criteria for the site.
Okay. Any other questions? There being none, don't go far.
Thank you.
First blue card, Steve Cox.
Mr. Chairman, how many speakers do we have in opposition? So 3 minutes each?
Mr. Cox, before we begin, 3 minutes.
Okay. My name is Steve Cox. I live at 319 Sallings Road, where you see that Sallings Road come down, make a curve, they make that little jog there. I live at the dead end on that Sallings Road. I had a question about your opening statement that this whole plan is concurrent with the existing area. That whole area has been a very quiet, peaceful residential area. I've lived there 22 years. The Rouse and Parkway development, that's there now. But that whole basic overall area within a half a mile or better that I'm resident in has always been quiet and residential. A lot of the questions Mr. Blake answered for us that are here tonight that are concerned. We had drainage questions, which you addressed is not your concern. Whether the wetlands delineation was questioned in it. But my police juror told me that what they were going to put in there was disabled veterans, mentally impaired, people without transportation, and low income. That was our concern of what we were told that was coming in there. Mr. Blake answered a lot of questions, and if what he's saying is true, and I'm not contending that. But when I first met him, when they put in Rouse's in that other development area, they had a multifamily, if I remember right, plan to put in there duplexes and some 2 or 3, 4 different single-family dwellings. Is that not going in there because you didn't get the government funding?
Well,
And this is the thing that's pressing this issue, is that they're getting government funding?
Mr. Cox, address us. not-
Okay, I'm sorry. He just proposed a lot of questions and eliminated a lot of questions.
Ask that question, and he'll have an opportunity at the end to come up. and
Okay,
address.
well, I kind of wanted that on the record because I didn't understand why they didn't go ahead with what they did, because I didn't have a problem with that. But what he said really answered a lot of questions as far as the clientele. But the drainage, I know it's not your issue, but we've never had flooding on our road until they built Rouse's. I've lived there, it's like 22 years. And ever since then, the drainage has been a real headache. Our road has been impassable more than once to my house. But other than that, the sewage, he answered the sewage question and a lot of other things here that we don't have time for at this time. So my 2 minutes. Thank you.
Mr. Cox, I just want to make a statement. I asked that question today from some of your neighbors about that drain.
Yeah,
and the low
it's-
area, and that concerned me because when you look at the deviation.
You saw
in
that. You
height,
know
it's
exactly what I'm
significant.
talking about.
I know I could stand on that culvert and you didn't have to be very far not to see me. And it's not like I'm overly large to begin with, but you couldn't see me.
Yeah, because I've seen a foot of water over that road. And it never did that until they built Rouse's. But anyway, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
before
sir.
we, true to form tonight, for the third time, we have another one. After the agenda item's been
Is there
read,
any objection by the board if we accept this blue card?
so why don't we move, all speakers from here get 2 minutes each.
2 minutes each.
And we're going to add
okay.
Kim Golightly to the list as well.
Okay.
I'll remind you at the end.
Thank you, sir.
Speakers have 2 minutes from here.
Mr. Randall Herbert.
Evening, my name's Randall Herbert. I live at 380 East Weber Circle. And you're probably saying, well, that don't sound like it's right there by this, but I'm here representing 203 Silings Road. You have a picture of my home. And you ought to recognize it easy enough. It's got two 40-foot Connex containers holding the contents of that home. We're trying to rebuild. Part of the stuff is, I've been told before, that's not stuff that really concerns us. But the traffic study and the drainage are two of the bigger problems. Where this, exactly where the, I shouldn't be turning around, but I know he's representing exactly where the entrance into this will be. You know, whether or not it's going to be opposite my house, my neighbor's house, whatever. You're saying it's 48 unit? Somebody said, well, 48 cars. Well, I'm saying that's a light deal. I'm saying that I'd double that easily, and that could be 96 vehicles. And you're saying, well, and you're talking about Salings Road. Salings Road is a dead-end road. It's no more than a quarter of a mile long. You've been putting all this traffic out there, and of course, Rouse's, the Chris's St. Pat, all those stuff. The delivery trucks are coming out all right there. So again, it'll make a little bit of a hardship. Your drainage, I don't know if you can tell on that plot plan, but that drainage we were talking about, that drainage runs from where Salings Road turns and is running east and west. It runs from there all the way through the back of the through that property to the back of Rouse's.
Thank you, Mr. Herbert. You're reaching.
Okay.
Okay. Philip Lucas, and I can't make out the last name. Okay, Pereira. Thank you for the assistance.
Good evening. I'm here to represent many concerned citizens of Moss Bluff, here to represent my kids.
Name and address, sir. for the record.
Philip Lucas Pereira, address is 2384 Fallen Ridge, Lake Charles, Louisiana, 70611. I live about a mile away from the proposed location in South Park Manor neighborhood, and it just seems counterintuitive, you know, and credit goes to Parkway Village for the nice investment in Moss Bluff right in front of Rouse's. It's the best property out there, and development out there, but it seems counterintuitive to drop in concentration 48 residences that welcome people with income that are below the average in the area. So if you look at it, for example, Parkway Village has a flyer out on that property in front of Rouse's, and one of the key notes on there is that the average income in the area is above 70,000 within 1 mile radius. But yet he's proposing, the applicant is proposing welcoming new residents that have an income at much less than 70,000, and in a lot of cases, less than half that. So in terms of attracting new businesses to sign on a lease in those properties and new investments, it seems counterintuitive. How are you going to attract new investments, but you're reducing the average income in the area? So that's my number one concern. Two, Moss Bluff citizens do not welcome an environment that cultivates entitlement and people that are living off the, well, let me put it this way. Government subsidized housing, regardless if it's Section 8 or not, they're renting for less than the market rate, and that's free housing in some regard. So Moss Bluff citizens, in large part, do not welcome that. And you know, from personal experience, many of you in here have seen it firsthand, that they all start off nice, and that the quality ends up going away. And then it fosters a culture of entitlement, and people without jobs, people that had a job when they got in there, and are incentivized to not make above a certain amount.
Thank you,
Then
Mr. Pereira.
our schools are
You've
above
reached your 2
average.
minutes.
What's going to happen when the kids bring that attitude to the schools?
Thank you. Mr. Gabb, who is our last?
Oh, we have Kim Golightly.
Kim Golightly?
Hi, I'm Kim Golightly. Excuse me, I live at 161 Salings Road. I hadn't originally planned on speaking, but listening to some of the stuff that was said, I felt like there was a couple points to point out. Number one, our road is less than a quarter of a mile long, and we only have 8 homes that are on that road. And the same people, and if not them, their descendants have taken over their homes. So I've lived there over 20 years, some of them 30 years. And like I said, there's only 8 homes on this road. When Rouse's came, which it was a good thing, but it took up, this is, when I say 8 houses, I mean only on the right-hand side of the road. Rouse's, I call it Rouse's, the whole complex is probably, I'm not gonna say half, but a quart, 3/4, I don't even know, but up to this point, it's actually to my driveway. And the other part is what they're considering doing all this building on. My house is currently valued at almost 4,000, not that that matters, but I'm just stating that what we're talking about in our area is not only the drop in the, I'm trying to say, the drop in values or anything. What I'm saying is, on this dead-end road that we have a quarter mile long, that would mean over 100 and something people would actually live on this small area. So I'm pretty concerned with what that's going to do. Our community, we've lived there. We have everyone notices because there's only 9 houses, who lives there, who does what, and we feel kind of threatened by this many people living in such a small area. So that's just what I wanted to add to it. We're very concerned about that portion of it. Of course, traffic on a dead-end road of a quarter mile long and that, but anyway, that was my main concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to come back to the podium, sir, and address the issues?
Thank you again. Someone mentioned whether, or asked whether or not a wetlands permit was in place. We did submit and receive our permit from the Corps of Engineers a few years ago. It was in place before we started the beginnings of Parkway Village development. Excuse me. Again, with respect to drainage and traffic, we will, or the developer will absolutely adhere to the rules in order to get their permit. Part of those rules being to go through a drainage and traffic study and put in place mitigating factors based on that study. The neighbors, I hope, will agree and remember that prior to the development, the ditch along the west side of Salings Road was full of silt. It hadn't been properly maintained, and we put in hard dollars to go in and fix that issue as a mitigating factor to be a good neighbor. And these developers will do the same. Again, similarly, whether it's drainage, sewer treatment, water treatment, we caused these infrastructure items to be brought in place as a result of the study that was done in order to do this development. And this developer will do these studies, and whatever the results say, they'll go through and put forth the measures that need to be done. Someone mentioned that the drainage goes from the back of Rouse's. All of the improved property that you see on this picture, stormwater runoff goes into the drain on site. Now, behind the 7 acres that are highlighted in yellow, in order to prevent, and we had to put in place a stormwater prevention, a SWIP plan, Wes? And part of that said we had to cut a drainage to the named lateral at the, southwestern portion of the property. And we did that. These developers are going to put in place whatever infrastructure needs to be put in place in order to make sure that the impact on the neighbors is none. And that's a rule that you guys have that they're going to follow. I'd point out that the people who are going to live here are your teachers, your municipal workers, your staff workers, your insurance agents, your bankers. These are hardworking people who are not asking for an entitlement. By and large, we expect that it will be Moss Bluff residents who are coming to live in the Moss Bluff flats.
Did I understand you say the developers on the original piece did drainage work on the west side of Salings Road?
We did.
Okay.
We
I-
we
make sure I
met
heard
through
that
and
right.
did some very creative work with Mr. Terry. So I want to point out, there was a question as to our original development and why we did not go forward with that. The plans that were put out in place were done by our architect to show the maximum impact allowable by the zoning ordinances, so that we could submit to the Corps of Engineers to receive our wetlands permit. And so what that was showing was the maximum, I don't know, impervious property that was going to be put in place. This is a significantly less impact to the raw land. So I would say that's a huge plus. The other thing is that Parkway Village investors and the investors group, we are not residential developers. That is not my forte. I don't pretend to be a residential developer. And so we've offered this property for some person to come along and buy it and develop on it, to provide, like I said, a quality project for the community.
I think the gentleman asked a question about, or maybe the lady, I could be incorrect, I could be wrong, the entrance to that property, or based on your plan, it's at the very northwest corner off of Salings on that property, correct? Is that what's proposed? I think that's what was asked.
That appears to be
Right.
correct.
Okay.
I mean, if the staff wants to provide a recommendation as to where else it might be, that's fine. That is, they are going to have to purchase property, and there really isn't a way for them to come into the property other than Salings Road.
No, that wasn't the question. Someone had got, and just asked exactly what location you were.
Oh, so I believe that it's north against the
is what
property
I-
line with some setback, but I cannot, for the life of me, see what that setback is.
Ms. Cobb?
I see it's a three-story building. Do you have elevators? Will you have elevators?
That's a great question, and I don't know the answer to that. I would imagine that,
I see the stairways.
I would imagine that Americans with disabilities rental units will be put on the first floor. I could be totally wrong about that. But again, no housing developer is going to come through and discriminate against someone who's in a wheelchair just because they're in a wheelchair. So they'll figure that out.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments, staff? Mr. Porsche?
Ms. Cobb's question. So typically on the ADA, it's any development, regardless of financing, the American with Disabilities Act, it requires you to do so many handicap accessible units per building, and then also per development per unit. So you'll have, I think last I checked, it was like 8 to 1, or maybe even 20 to 1. So for every 20 units, you have to have one ADA accessible unit. And typically you would obviously put those on the first floor, so you don't have to have an elevator. So has nothing to do with this, but I just wanted to answer your question. Probably could have done that after the meeting. But.
Any other questions or comments? Ms. Christie, roll call vote.
Ms. Hyatt? Mr. Little?
Yes.
Mr. Porsche?
Yes.
Mr. Vincent?
No.
Mr. Williams?
Yeah.
Ms. Winey?
Yes.
Ms. Dickerson?
Yes.
Ms. Cobb? Ms. Galicia?
Yes.
8 for and 1 against.
Motion passes. Item 7D, take appropriate action on RZ-1221-0218, a request by Hyco Enterprises LLC to amend ordinance number 6229 to remove all conditions and to rezone from manufactured home park to recreational vehicle park. To allow recreational vehicle park, total 14 spaces at 1080 Edwards Road in Ward 6. I will entertain a motion for approval with conditions. Motion by Ms. Dickerson, second by Ms. Cobb. Ms. Tunn?
This property is in the North Sulphur area and encompasses 4.7 acres that is zoned manufactured home park. In 2013, the applicant was granted a rezoning to allow 11-space recreational vehicle park with conditions. At this time, the applicant intends to amend the site plan and rezone to recreational vehicle park to expand the existing park, which will consist of a total of 14 spaces. Also, the applicant would like to remove condition number 6, the previous rezoning, to exclude the bathing facilities. Because minimal impacts are to be expected, the staff recommends the request be granted with the following conditions: that the development adhere to this revised site plan on file with the Division of Planning and Development, provided that the director or designee may authorize adjustments to the site plan in light of technical or engineering considerations discovered during development, that all parking must be hard surface, concrete, or asphalt, that the development adhere to the recreational vehicle park restrictions that are on file with the Division of Planning and Development, and that the restrictions transfer to a new owner in the event the park is sold, that the park will not allow dependent recreational vehicles, that RV park model types are prohibited, that any expansion must be approved from the Waterworks District 7 of Ward 6 and 4, that all exterior lighting must be oriented inward toward the development and the light source cannot be visible to the adjacent properties, that a runoff management plan will be required unless appropriate waiver is granted by the Division of Engineering, and that only the south 660 feet of the property be rezoned to recreational vehicle park.
Thank you, Ms. Toon. Does the applicant have anything to offer in this presentation?
Like that's out there. Where Springs cuts off Anthony Ferry.
It's back in there.
Yeah.
Afternoon, this is Joey Hayco, 1050 Edwards Road, Sulphur, Louisiana, 70663. And I was just wanting to ask y'all to consider this. I'm already adhering to all of the recommendations that the zoning board has, the staff has put forward. I'm already complying with all that. And I did a runoff management study before I ever built the park, so that's been taken care of too. If we need to amend that, I'd be happy to do that.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
There are no blue cards on this agenda item. Any questions or comments by the board? There being none, all those in favor, state aye. Aye. Any opposition? There being none, motion carries. Item 8, the next item on the agenda is to advise that the next regularly scheduled planning and zoning meeting will be held Tuesday, February 15th, 2022. I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Ms. Dickerson, second by Coach. The meeting is adjourned.